It's the back end of winter, at least up here in the Northern Hemisphere, and most people are sick of the season by now. Don't get me wrong, I love the colder half of the year, other than my gas bills, but the bleakness of the season does get pretty old pretty quick and easily becomes uninspiring. So I set myself a challenge to figure out how to photograph winter, to truly capture the season and the feeling that it brings. As a documentarian, it's always my approach to focus on and to try and capture reality. And well, the reality of winter is that it's cold, that there's not many people out, that there's not much going on, and that the trees are dead. And so my first thought was to go with a style of photography that lends well to capturing nothing, a lack of, something that I like to call quiet photography, which is largely inspired by the hallmarks of the deadpan style. If you're unfamiliar with deadpan photography, it depicts subject in a straightforward, uncluttered way, often without emotion. The goal is to capture a scene as it is, without embellishment. And for my quiet photography, that's pretty accurate, other than the without emotion bit, as it is the empty, somewhat melancholic feeling of winter that I'm trying to capture. So I went out and took some quiet photos, finding barren scenes, many of which will look vastly different come summer. I was looking for that winter's nothing, frames that lacked that which the other seasons tend to hold. Empty benches, run-down signs, blank walls, scarcely covered trees. I think this style lends itself beautifully to the season and these scenes, and it certainly captures that quiet bleakness, nature's and society's hibernation. From a documentary viewpoint, I'm carefully composing these images, choosing what to include and exclude. So I'm creating the story. It's not documentary in the traditional sense, therefore, but I believe it is authentically capturing the season and its feeling, or at least the way it feels to me. Now, I like this quiet photography. It's almost slightly liminal feeling, like there's more to be desired, and I think that is pretty much where winter stands for a lot of people, especially when we're this far into it. Quiet stillness of the scenes that I captured is a common sight at this time of the year. Like I said earlier, there really isn't much going on, and everything's just kind of left to sit until things pick up and warm up and people actually get out and do things again. I mean, think of it like this. If you were to sit in a park in summer on a bench and look out at the field and the playground, everything would be busy. There'd be people out, there'd be picnics, there'd be social gatherings, there'd be kids playing, there'd be dogs running about. Whereas if you did the same thing at this time of the year in winter, there'd be very few people out. The park would be pretty much empty most of the time. There certainly wouldn't be picnics and social gatherings out on the grass, on the fields. You'd see the odd dog walker, and that'd probably be it. And that feeling, the difference between those two parallels, I think the winter side of it is captured really well within this quiet photography. Those hallmarks of deadpan, the use of dead space and the centering of subjects, the capturing the mundane, all of those things are a really good way to capture that weird, empty feeling of winter. And so I think that was a really appropriate style to go for. But I feel like the season still has a lot more to offer. And so I went out again, this time around sunset, and moving on a bit from the quiet photography style. This time I focused on three main things: trees, landscapes, and contrast, as well as whatever else caught my eye. The trees were a no-brainer. If anything were a symbol of winter, the naked branches reaching to the distant sun, that it's got to be a strong contender. The twisted limbs covered in dry bark and sleeping moss, just waiting idle until this bitter season is over. When you look upon the natural beauty of spring and summer, you see greenery, you see full trees and bushes. Whereas winter's the polar opposite, it's just the branches, the skeleton that remains. Of course, landscapes are fitting for any season, as the season always shows itself. Other than a snowy white scene, this is winter. Dull and dead palette from the horizon down, with those scraggly branches always poking through, and the sky adding pretty much the only flare of vibrancy. With some of these, I aim to centre a subject in the middle of the image, inspired by the whole deadpan thing, like in this shot with the pylon right in the centre. It's like a large skeleton standing tall above the dormant trees. And for contrast, I think winter's full of it. You seek warmth away from the cold, It gets darker earlier, so you're always seeing through the dark through artificial light. The sky's often layered with silhouettes. Lots of these photos focus on contrast, like the industry against the nature, the light against the dark, the vibrant colours of the sky popping through in an otherwise dull scene. By this point within the season, near the end of winter, it's kind of hard to see what it actually has to offer. Visually, it becomes so old and worn and cold and bitter that it's almost like you struggle to see the good. It's like a practice of seeing the silver lining to a bad situation. It's like finding the subdued, muted beauty in a completely dull environment. Winter may well be a drab, uninspiring season, miserable to many, but in truth, visually, it does have a lot to offer. You might just have to change your perspective a little in order to see it. If you've watched this video because you've been struggling a bit with photography this far into winter and everything is feeling drab and uninspiring, I've got a challenge to propose. Go out and shoot the season for what it is, whether that be the vibrant sunsets over the bland landscapes, whether it's the bony skeletal trees or the sea of twigs and mulch on the floor from the dead leaves. Could be the dew in the morning, the frozen cobwebs on an old fence. If winter's feeling old, try and capture the feeling of winter, whatever that may be for you. Take a page from a documentarian's book and capture the season for what it is. Because the truth is, there's no need to try and make it any different. If you do go out to photograph winter, I'd love to see it. So if you do post it on your Instagram, for example, tag me at the Northern Documentarian and I'll be sure to check it out. If you like this video, if I've helped give you that fresh perspective or inspired you to go out and take some photos, then hit like and let me know in the comments. That would be great to see. If you'd like to see more content about photography, about filmmaking, about documentaries, all the good stuff I do here, then hit subscribe because there's a lot more on the way. Sound for watching. See you in the next one. The sky is often layered with silhouettes. Lots of these photos okay. Take a page. Bloody hell.